So our next speaker is going to be talking about lessons to operate in a toxic environment. Please welcome and give a standing ovation to Oussama from the family. You start with a standing ovation. That's awesome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you to welcome me to Startup Istanbul. So my name is Oussama Ammar. I created a company called The Family. The Family, we have a very simple job. We take equity in startups as early as possible, most of the time at bad idea stage, you know, like when most of the entrepreneurs start from. And we try to provide anything we can to an entrepreneur and to be as custom experience as we can. My experience as an entrepreneur in France was quite hard, and I did not receive a lot of support when I was an entrepreneur. And so I created The Family with the goal of trying to build something that is very custom for entrepreneurs. And so I learned a few things in the last 10 years doing that. One of the things is, how do you operate in a toxic environment? So let me explain what's a toxic environment. Basically, right now in the world, startups are quite common, often happening everywhere, but still ecosystems are not ready to support entrepreneurs everywhere. I don't know Turkey that well, but I know that you don't have many billion-dollar companies here. It's like France, it's like Europe, it's like anywhere. We have a lot of entrepreneurs, we have a lot of energy, but at the end, we don't have that many success. And there is a very good reason for that. One reason is that the environment is not adapted to the way startup works. Startups are very counterintuitive by nature because most of the things that are necessary to develop startup are very contradictory with the kind of thing that are necessary to operate a regular company. And one problem I see with entrepreneurs around the world is that they think that business people have good insight for them. They think that because people have an agency or running a consulting successful business or doing things that look like money generator, they have anything smart to say about how to operate a startup. And recently I got an image to explain that. Startups are for the economy what children are in life. Because children are the most common startup created in the world. Let me explain. When you do a children, you don't have a business plan. You know, you don't really know if that children is going to be Google or a small agency or a totally bankrupt company. But still, every parent in the world look at his children with the eyes that is looking at a little Mozart. You know, that was the education revolution during the 17th centuries, is when we started to say that because children have potential, we should not evaluate them out of their realization, but out of the potential they have. And that's why sometimes we are mistaken about children, because we see a lot of potential and this potential don't realize. And you know, as a parent, having a sustainable children that is profitable, it's a hard job. It takes a lot of times. Average education of children is 15 years, up to 20. There is some children at 25 still in their parents' house. So some children are very late boomer. And because we are so used of this kind of risk and natural thing, we don't realize how much they apply also in the business world. When we look at a startup, we cannot evaluate them with the same criteria when we evaluate a regular company, for the simple reason that a startup is different by nature. And the problem is that most startups, and I saw that yesterday talking to a few of you, you act like you are a small version of a big company. You act like you think that being a startup is about looking more serious than you are. And you don't understand that being a startup is about being a child. You know, when you see this child that look like a little accountant, I don't know, there's a lot of them in, in the world. You know, they are a child, but they try to act like an adult. It looks weird, right? Little bit like most of you that have a board of director, board of advisor, VP, CEO, CTO, CPO, and only interns. It looks weird. It looks really weird because you try to be a small version of a big company. A startup is not a small version of a big company. A startup is something that is trying to find product market fit, and nothing is important until you found this product market fit. The second problem we have in ecosystem like Istanbul, France, London, whatever, is that we read way too much TechCrunch. So one problem is that we look at Silicon Valley and we think that Silicon Valley is a model. Silicon Valley is an historical accident that happened for totally no reason. Nobody understands why Silicon Valley is Silicon Valley. If anyone pretends that he understands why Silicon Valley is Silicon Valley, please give me a call. I'm very interested by that. The truth is that most historical phenomena, they happen without real explanation. And the problem we have is that we look at that and we have two kinds of reaction. Reaction number one, we look at it and we found it crazy and we try to understand it with our own rules. Why in Silicon Valley startups are over-evaluated? Because it's the only place where startups are really evaluated. Why people pay way too much for valuation in Silicon Valley? It's because it's a place where they can lose more money than anywhere else. Silicon Valley, on the last 10 years, produced a company that is north of $1 billion valuation every week. Every week. Like in 7 years at the family, we did 3 of them. And that's, I think, the best score in Europe. And it's really, really not a lot. We had to take 400 startups to have 3 of them that are valued more than $1 billion. So you see, the math are not the same, and still we apply the same thing. And why? Because it's an obsession about fundraising. Yesterday, I was on this boat trying to enjoy the view, and I talked with a lot of you, and everyone come and ask me how to fundraise. One of the most funny questions I get always asked. Because the funny question is, why do you think anyone should invest in you? It's like being a child. When I was a child, at the beginning when you're a child, when you're hungry, we give you food. And then one day I told my mom I was hungry and she told me it's not the time to eat. A very traumatized moment of my life. I still remember that feeling to understand that I was not the center of the universe. And with a Lebanese mom, I think it's kind of the same here. You get this feeling to be the center of the world very fast. The problem is that you are not. As an entrepreneur, when you have a plan and you say, I'm going to raise money, you think that people will give you money. It's a very strange assumption. Most of the time, most of you are not going to raise anything, or you are going to raise in really bad condition. And your obsession to raise is an obsession that is based on the fact that the only newsworthy information we get from Silicon Valley are fundraising. All of you kind of think that startup equals fundraising. It's not. So let me explain you what a startup is about. Startup is about doing something that most of the people don't understand. It's creating something without anything. Every great startup starts by doing an impossible thing, by doing something that kind of blew up imagination, that kind of defy what is commonly understood. If startup was about having a budget and spending that budget better than others, then startup will be a manager game. It will be a game where people with an MBA will win. But obviously people with an MBA struggle in the startup world. And there is a good reason for that, is that startup is about product, market fit, customers. And as an entrepreneur operating an ecosystem where there is not a lot of capital, that is not Silicon Valley, your obsession should not be about getting any money. Your obsession should be about how can you make yourself attractive for worldwide capital. How making yourself so exceptional that nobody will care you are in Istanbul. So that's a funny thing about startup. You know, when I started in Paris in 2013, all my friends from Silicon Valley were telling me, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you doing that? And I said mostly for food and women, but still, I came in Paris because I loved my life in Paris much more than my miserable life in Silicon Valley. And so I did it with one ambition, was to make French startup compatible with American investor. And to do that, you have to do much better startup in France than average startup in America. Silicon Valley ecosystem is an incredible ecosystem, not because bright people succeed. It's an exceptional ecosystem because very average people succeed. What makes Silicon Valley so unique is that people without not much talent, because they are at the right place at the right moment, kind of achieving something great, because there is so much means around. But if you try to play that game from here, you are going to lose, because you will be always evaluated as a startup coming from an environment nobody knows about. Nobody in Silicon Valley wake up and tell himself, oh, what is happening this week in Paris? Or what is happening this week in Istanbul? That question is a question that nobody there asked. And the question we should ask ourselves here is what kind of company we can build that are built with our own rules. And I encourage you about that much more than anything. You should establish your own rules. Being an entrepreneur is not about submission. Being an entrepreneur is not about pleasing investors. Being an entrepreneur is not about trying to do what people expect from you. It's really about doing what is necessary and whatever it takes to go to the next step. And in an ecosystem like Istanbul is about being obsessed by clients. And think about it. You know why clients are 1,000 times better than any investor on earth? It's because clients don't lie. Investor, and I do that all the time, so I know it, they lie because most of the time when they are facing you, they cannot tell you the truth. Like you come and you say something, and sometimes I think in my head, okay, this is the most stupid thing I heard in my life. Do you really think I'm going to tell you that? No, I will say, oh yeah, you know, I have a very big doubt about this market. I think that execution is kind of hard. Like that's my word to say, I don't believe. Please, go elsewhere. Like you take too much of my space. And as an entrepreneur, managing rejection, as an investor, managing rejection, it's not easy. Like, I mean, some investors tell me, yeah, I love to say no. I'm like, how you do that? I hate to say no. Because there is so much emotion in an entrepreneur. But you know who really don't care about your emotion? Clients. Clients are the most horrible human being that you can find. They don't care about who you are. They don't care about what you do. They only care about themselves, and they have a unique way to telling you. Anyone that do something in his life and go online and see comments about what he's doing is depressed. It's a very, like I do video on YouTube, sometimes I go and read the comment just to be depressed. And the funny thing about this process is that they are right. Most of the bad comments, there is always a bit of truth you can find into them. And that's what makes entrepreneur very strong, is that an entrepreneur that is obsessed about customer, obsessed about finding a way to have a product market fit, meaning building a product that really meets his market. There is not an effort you can do, there is not an energy you can focus that will provide you more value. Yesterday, someone told me that he was business plan ready and business model ready. I really wish to understand what does it mean. Business plan, let's talk about that. I'm sure a lot of you here are doing business plan. You are wrong, you should stop right now. Don't do any business plan anymore. I know what you are going to tell me. Yeah, but some people ask me business plan. If someone asks you a business plan is stupid, there is no other word, and I will explain you why. Because business plan is a kind of hypothesis that is unproven. Business plans have been invented to describe very well-known business. If you open a bakery, you can write a business plan. Because in a bakery, there is no unknown criteria. That's why Excel spreadsheet became the first generator of poetry around the world. There is much more poetry written in spreadsheet right now than in Microsoft Word, because of startup communities. And startup communities love to write business plan because in a business plan, reality always look good. Your cost is always 10% of your revenue. Your marketing is always 15% of your revenue. And of course, if you're an operator, you know that it's not true. It doesn't work like that most of the time. It's messy, it's complicated, it's unpredictable. And writing a business plan, it's like trying to write, poetry instead of going and having a life. You can do a lot and talk a lot about love inside poesy. You will never experience it if you don't go out and take some risk and talk to someone you are not supposed to talk. That's same thing with entrepreneur. And business model ready, that was the first time I heard that. You can decide any business model you want, but the business model is real when people pay you. And here starts the other thing. Because you are in an ecosystem that are much harder than the average, you have to make people pay faster. Silicon Valley can have free version of themselves for virality because, again, they have something unique in the world, is unlimited access to capital. You don't. So you have to make money. And you have to make a lot of money faster than anywhere. If you are building a company that don't have an obvious business model that is proven with clients paying very early on, even if what you are doing is not ready, I can tell you your chance of succeeding as an entrepreneur are very low. All of that comes down to one very simple lesson. Building a startup is not that hard in theory. The theory around how to build a startup is quite easy. Do something that people want. If you do it with enough intensity, you will be able to move at a speed that no one will never imagine is possible. And if you put this intensity in your life, then a lot of magical things will start to happen. And eventually, really good investor will notice you and they will give you the mean to go to the next stage. There is nothing you can do that is out of this very simple scheme. For a simple reason is that the ecosystem you are in is an ecosystem where track record of success is very low. And that's true for Europe, that's true for South America. The only two exceptions is China and the US. If you want to play the capital game, take a plane ticket, go to live in Silicon Valley and try to survive that game. But don't try to play that game outside. Now, if you're an entrepreneur and you are serious about that, then there is something magical online, is that there is nothing you cannot learn. We live in 2019. It means that everything you want to learn can happen online. And anything you need to know can be taught and acquired online. Don't underestimate that. Being now in Istanbul, Beirut, Paris, or whatever, it's exactly the same in terms of knowledge. Like there is no premium anymore to be in Silicon Valley in terms of knowledge. And so take the knowledge, acquire the knowledge, adapt the knowledge, try, make this your own version, and be rebellious. And that will be my last message. A lot of you are way too nice to be entrepreneurs, guys. Way too nice. I don't know if it's a Turkish thing or not. I know I come from Lebanon where culture of submission is very high. You have to respect your elder and all this bullshit. That doesn't make entrepreneurs, guys. Like if I was respecting my elders, I would have listened to my mom. And if I had listened to my mom, I will not be running the family. I will be maybe an accountant somewhere making a salary. There is always a moment, especially in culture like ours, where you will need to go against the society if you want to build something new and if you want to build something big. So be courageous, be yourself, and go big. Thank you. I stay?
Yeah. Before I let you go, they're going to bring some chairs up to set up. So if I can take one moment with you.
Sure.
I'm wearing a T-shirt that I think summarizes at least part of what your message is. I want to share it with you, and then we can share it with them if you think it's appropriate.
Sell shit, yeah.
So this is, I think, part of at least what Oussama was saying. Get out of the building, sell shit, talk to customers, get feedback, and grow. And just because I'm using this in an American way, and you know what I mean by shit, It's not selling something bad. It's sell something is really what we're saying. So in any event, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
This is wonderful. Let's give Oussama a wonderful hand.